Hi, and a huge welcome to our session today, which is Festive Recovery Hacks from the Experts. And this is the first time we've done this, and I'm very excited about it because it's not just about recovery specialists coming together. This is about lived experience. And so every single one of the lovely experts today has been in exactly the position that you're in, either going through their own recovery from chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, or long COVID. So if you're really concerned or looking to Christmas and worrying that it's not, not going to be what you'd like it to be, then what we've done is put our heads together to give you everything that we kind of experienced and learned, and pull together some really great festive recovery hacks so that we can hopefully make this Christmas, regardless of what you're going through, as enjoyable and as peaceful, and helping you to still keep your recovery on track with all those kind of different things we have to deal with at this time of the year. So we thought we'd start with a little bit of festive wisdom, and love this quote that Kelly found for us. And it says, keep yourself in mind. It is so easy to get swept up in the pressure and expectations to be giving to others. Keep practicing self-care. And remember, you do not need to set yourself on fire to keep others warm. So how many times have we thought that? I think especially at this time of the year, it feels like every other priority seems to come ahead of our own well-being. So this session is completely about that. And we're going to do our absolute best to make sure that you don't set yourself on fire this year to keep others warm. So I'm delighted to introduce you to our recovery experts today, and they are recovered experts. So we have contributing Dr. Heather Dunn, who isn't going to be live with us today because she's in Australia visiting her family. And then we have Wendy. Hi, Wendy.
Hi, everybody. It's really great to be here for this really valuable conversation, because I know that I found Christmas one of the most challenging things in my recovery. So I'm looking forward to being a part of this conversation.
That's great. Thanks, Wendy. And we have Alison McGrath as well here today.
Hello. Yes, likewise. I think it's a big part of recovery, isn't it? How you manage Christmas.
Yeah, and it also gives you some really good tips, doesn't it? We're hoping that it's not just about the festive period. It's about whenever you're in that position where, events come up. It can be any time of the year, can't it? Where there's a wedding or, something where there's often family gatherings and things like that. So, but hopefully we'll be arming them, won't we, Alison, with all the things that that we perhaps didn't know. So and Janie, welcome, Janie. Lovely to have you here today.
Morning. Really looking forward to being here and sharing my tips with you today. My recovery is quite a while back, so some of it's a little bit rusty in my memory, but I've come up with some good tips on the nutrition side to help through the Christmas period and other times of the year as well.
And we have with us as well Beverly McCluskey. Hi, Bev.
Hello, everybody. I remember 2 years ago, I was knee deep in a terrible Christmas, just exhausted and feeling very, very low. And it's so different now. And I want to share a couple of things that helped me get from there to here. See you later.
Fantastic. So what a great team we have today. I've been really looking forward to this. Even pulled out the festive jumper for you. So let's start with Alison. Alison, you've come up with some really great tips here. So yeah, would you like to take us through them?
Yes, hello. I'm just looking at this slide. It really makes me think of just the extent to which Christmas is presented as a sort of a dream and a magical time, and it's all sparkles and expectations. And very much we're told it's all about family, and there are sort of expectations about having to get absolutely everything perfectly right, and all of those sort of like the John Lewis advert and everything, where they present the perfect family. But on the other flip side of that is that people also talk about Christmas as being the nightmare. And, as soon as things start appearing in the shops, people are going, oh no, Christmas is coming. And it can be really a time of dread as well. So I was thinking there about the importance of taking the opportunity for Christmas to think about, well, what is your dream Christmas, rather than that dream that everybody else is projecting out there that it ought to be. And if Christmas is a nightmare for you and you're really dreading it, is to think about, well, if I could have any Christmas I liked, what would that be for me? Because you are really important in all of this. And I think one of the other things about Christmas is that it's so centered on family and childhood. People will often say, oh, it's all for the children, isn't it? And that we're expected to be, as you said, sort of burning ourselves to keep other people warm. But it brings up all of that stuff from childhood, which is often a large part of the reason why we've been ill in the first place. So the reason why we've driven ourselves and not looked after ourselves and prioritized what everybody else thinks we should be doing. So it's a really good opportunity to just spend some time thinking, okay, what am I aiming for in Christmas? What's special for me? So you might sort of journal around this, or just make a mood board, but thinking, when I wake up on Christmas Day and I first open my eyes, where do I want to be? And who do I want to be with? And what do I want to be looking forward to? And it may be that you want to be with family, and that really makes you feel energized and good. Or it may be that you would prefer a Christmas where you wake up and you know nobody needs you and you can be entirely on your own. But if you start with that dream now, you can be working towards it. And I know later on we'll come up with tips around how you manage the difficult situations now, because we're coming close to Christmas and some things it's not easy to deal with immediately. But you can be working towards that dream for the whole of this coming year. So even if this Christmas is one of illness and feeling isolated and awful, you can be working towards next Christmas being closer to that dream that you have. And it's perfectly valid for you to have that dream for yourself. And I think that really lies at the heart of the self-care is noticing, are you looking at yourself as a tool for other people? And are other people looking at you as a tool to meet what they need as well? So Christmas is a really good time to be looking at your interactions and your relationships, and the people that you are spending time with, and understanding some of that deeper family dynamic stuff. So actually the difficulties of Christmas can then become an opportunity, because once you begin to notice the patterns and see what your place is amongst the people around you, you've got the possibility to start making changes and choices. So just a couple of tips for managing this kind of process. First of all, I would say get in early with your own plans. So if you always find that everybody else says, well, we always do this, and so is going to cook Christmas dinner, and you're going to be here on that day and there on that day. If you've already blocked into your diary what you're doing, it's much easier to say, well, actually, this year I'm doing that, so I'm really sorry, but no. And really practice saying that no and meaning it with people. And that's easier said than done. So that's why I say practice it. But also get a bit curious, as I say, looking at those relationships and thinking, well, what happens when I say no to this person? Are they somebody who says, that's fine, I know you're really not feeling well, so, whatever you need. Those are the people who are really going to energize you and make you feel good and you want to be around. So stay closer to them. But if that person is like, oh, really? I really need you to do this, or so-and-so will be so disappointed, and they wheedle and they try and manipulate you, that's a sign that they're actually seeing you not as a human being, but as a useful tool for them. And those people are the ones who tend to drain you and make you feel awful. So you need to be kind of trying to minimize contact with those. And I think we'll probably look as well a bit about how you practically do that. How do you manage when you are spending time with people you don't want to? But always remembering that no is a sentence in itself. So you don't have to justify yourself. So if you don't want to do something, if you know it's really going to make you feel awful and you say no, it's about sticking with that, and that you don't have to justify it at all. And I think, I suppose we would say this here, aren't we? Because we are all practitioners. But sometimes if you're really struggling to do that and to say that no and mean it and to hold that boundary, it can really help to work with somebody and sort of anticipate and plan and really sort of think ahead for how you're going to manage.
So important, aren't they, that thinking ahead of how you want it to be, rather than getting pulled along with everyone else's idea of what it should be.
I can add in, I remember, just as Alison's talking there, I remember one of our Christmases, and often what we would do, we would have the Christmas lunch, and then it was one of my jobs was as a child to sort out the presents under the trees into different piles. And I remember one year when I was still in recovery, and I said, I need to have a nap after lunch, but I'd really still like to do that, so I enjoyed doing that part. I said, so I'm going to have an hour and then I come back and sort the presents out. And it was honoured. But I said that quite early on in the day, or maybe even before, I can't remember now. But it was that kind of getting in early with my own plans. And I did do that. And that really helped me to get through the day and enjoy it.
Oh, that's lovely, Janie. Yeah, that was really good, wasn't it? That you didn't miss out on the bit that you really loved doing.
Yes, yeah, completely. It's sort of one of those childhood memories, and it's something I carried on, and my niece and nephew often do it, and my daughter does it now. But it's often me kind of going, come on, it's time to sort the presents out. And it's something I've always done. I guess I was the youngest child, and something I always really enjoyed.
Yeah.
And it's part of Christmas for me, and I still like to do that and wanted to do that in the recovery state. So made that happen. So yeah.
So what I also heard there was that you had gone along, you'd gone along to there, but you'd practiced really great self-care and told people what would need to happen in order for you to be there.
Yes. Yeah. And sort of survive the day almost, so that you don't get to a depleted place. And for me, the afternoon rest worked really well. And that's kind of what I needed, that quiet time away from the sort of noise and the buzz of the room. So even if I didn't sleep, I can't remember now if I slept or not, but it was taking myself away from the busyness, having that quiet time, breath, come back to my center, what I needed, and that helped me through the day.
I really love this idea that Alison's presented about coming from a place of what you want out of Christmas, because I do think that there's a lot of things that we need to do at Christmas, and often we forget what we would like to be doing at Christmas. And I think generally with our recovery, Christmas highlights this issue. Sometimes as highly sensitive people, we're kind of scanning the environment and wanting everybody else to be happy and settled so that we feel okay. And, you know, dealing with Christmas can be a really good sort of blueprint for how to deal with that throughout the rest of the year. And remember to come from a place of what would we like, and balance that with what other people need and want as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it is those that there are so many externally applied expectations, aren't there? And I think as we go through, we're going to be dealing with those bit by bit. So thank you so much for those points, Beverly. And I love this. We got some top tips here, and it's the things I wish I'd known now I look back. Or thongs that you wish you'd known, which is what I'd originally put on the slide.
Take my mute off. It's funny, isn't it, how when you look back and you reflect and you think, because it's such an exact science, isn't it, hindsight? So I'm happy to share some of the things that I do now, but I wish I'd have done when I was poorly, and actually probably for many, many Christmases before, because as so many of us have perfectionist tendencies and people pleasing tendencies, this is where we go. So first and foremost, and building on actually from what Alison has just said, is I would start, I'm doing it now already, but I learned to discuss and manage expectations way ahead of the day. Start having a conversation as soon as possible with what Christmas is going to look like for you and the people you're going to spend it with, the day, the few days running up to and afterwards, so that on the day there aren't any surprises. Like Janie has just said, this is what I want to do. Is that going to be okay? And that's all right. Just manage people's expectations. Often we're not very good at communicating our needs. Our needs are as important as everyone else's. And I used to come from a place of such huge sacrifice that I didn't feel it was okay to say what I needed. But once I did, it was easily accepted. Everyone understood, and it was great. I felt great. They felt great, because your family and your friends will be happy when you are happy. And again, this is something for me that I've had to really, really learn, that my needs do not come last. I am as important as everybody else. There's no hierarchy here. And it's okay to delegate, and it's okay to ask for help. And in fact, it engenders respect, because the thing that I've learned throughout my recovery is that I spent quite a lot of time in either a victim mentality or a martyr mentality. I absolutely had no knowledge of this till it was brought to my attention. And when it was described, I thought, gosh, yeah, I'm either a victim, oh, poor me, it's hideous, this is a nightmare, it's really hard for me, it's harder for me than everyone else. Or I'll do it, I'll try and preempt everybody else's needs and work myself to the bone, and then feel really resentful and seethingly angry underneath. And both of those mindsets are deeply disempowering, and yet it's so easy to go there. There's no blame here, no judgment, but I lived in that mindset for years. So I would just say, maybe be aware where you are. Are you in a bit of a victim and a bit of a martyr kind of mindset? And if you are, replenish and get yourself out of that if you possibly can. You can't change something you're not aware of. That was massive for me, actually, massive. And also, when you are asking for what you want or what you don't want, remember that your body language and what you say need to match. So if we say, no, I'm absolutely fine with that, clearly the words say I'm absolutely fine with it, but the tone of voice and the body language say I'm not. So it's okay to say, I'm going for a rest now and I'm okay with that. I'll see you later. Crystal clear. Okay, I hear you. See when you go back. Do you want me to come and give you a knock? Something like that. When stuff is communicated positively, this is my needs and I'm okay with it, it affects how the other person hears it. Otherwise, I'll hear one thing and see another, and that's deeply confusing. And lastly, just please remember, I wish I'd known this back in the day, the emotions of other people are not your responsibility. If somebody else feels a bit upset or a bit angry or a bit disappointed, that is their choice and that is them to deal with. You haven't made them like that. That's their response to what's going on in the whole world. So you don't have to try and make everybody happy all the time. Please, please, please look after you, and the rest will look after itself. I hope that's helpful.
Oh, I love that. I love that, Beverly. I think it is so true, isn't it? That especially with the more tricky people in our lives, we kind of know what they're going to say, and we sort of ruminate on, you know, perhaps putting off having a conversation with them about changing plans at Christmas, or that you're not going to attend something or whatever, because you know that you're going to get a reaction. So I think that's so, so helpful to know that we all choose how we respond to things, what people say, what people do, and that is our individual responsibility, and we have to make sure that we leave that responsibility with the individual that reacts or responds. I think that is super important. Something I would say in a more empowering way, you know, instead of sort of saying, you know, I'm ill, I've got ME, I've got chronic fatigue, I've got fibro, so I can't. What we always try and foster in the Chrysalis effect is to say, I'm doing really well on my recovery pathway that I'm following. And as I've started putting everything in place, I'm starting to really feel the improvement. So for those of you that find it really hard not to give a reason why you don't want to do something, then that's a really good one. You know, I'm doing so well on my recovery pathway, I don't want to derail it over Christmas. So I've decided to do X this year. Okay, so that gives you a really nice positive place to come from, and it will raise eyebrows. Wow, that's great. Really great to see that. Where people get uncomfortable, I think, is where we go, well, I can't because I'm just, you know, I'm just so ill at the moment. I just feel so bad. And, you know, I think we have to be honest with ourselves as well, that sometimes, I remember I said this in my book, sometimes my illness was actually an excuse I could use because I wasn't comfortable with what I was being asked to do, and I wasn't actually comfortable being honest with the person that I didn't want to do it. So it's not a great place to be, because actually you're kind of telling yourself and someone else a little fib. So it's much better to just, you know, own your recovery, own that you really don't want to derail anything. So this year, this is what you're going to be doing. And, I think that's a more powerful way to do it. So thanks, Beverly. That's great. Yeah. So Heather, as I said, is in Australia, but she's got some top tips for healthy Christmas. So I'm just going to go through those and share them with you. So the first one is Christmas shopping. So she's suggesting, and this is from her own experience of recovery, shopping online for gifts rather than tripping around the shops saves precious time and energy. And of course, it's those, the music playing, the bright lights, the people, the crowds, the queuing. If you're really looking to pace your energy, that's not going to be great for you, because mental energy, environments can drain us. So she says, if you struggle online, then maybe ask someone to help you search, and then you only need to make the final decision by looking at what they've come up with. Now, I'm not unwell anymore, but I'm not as great at shopping as my daughter. So I will often say to her, I'm looking for something for so-and-so, and she'll ping me links, which is great. So if you've got somebody who loves it and can support you on that, I think that's a really great one. So part of that leads into delegation, and she says delegate. And she says this was always her nemesis. She says, as I had to feel in control of every last detail before her recovery. But now she takes pleasure in asking for the help that she needs. And she says it can still be challenging at times to step back and leave things to others. Sometimes it has to just be good enough, not perhaps how you would do it if you were firing on all cylinders. And she says, but I know that loved ones feel needed and are really pleased to help. So that often that internalized thing where we have to be the fixer, the provider, the person who goes the extra mile, dropping those things is our lessons through recovery. So Christmas or festive season, whatever you're celebrating, is a really good time to practice that. So Heather's saying that's a win-win situation.
Yeah, that's very, very much me, Elaine. The perfectionist of having to be in control of every single detail, and that fear that it's all going to go horribly wrong if you're not. And I must have been a nightmare for my family when my kids were small. And I would spend most of Christmas Day feeling really awful, just powering through huge lists of things. And one of the great things about my recovery, I discovered that if I didn't have a homemade wreath on my front door, Christmas still happened. But also, delegating is also really nice for other people, because I was keeping it all to myself, so it would be perfect. Yeah. But now I share it out in my family. So in the run up to Christmas, we make a list of what we're going to eat on each day, so we know what to buy. But we also decide who's going to cook what. And we do lots of stuff in advance and freeze it and get it all ready. So my daughter's already made our Christmas cake, and that's become her thing now that she does each year. And she and my son will do the decorations, and it just makes it really nice for them to be able to participate so much more, rather than me kind of delivering the perfect Christmas to them. It's trying to be the perfect mum.
Yeah,
we have so much fun together. It's lovely.
That's great, isn't it? And then you're not exhausted, and they've all got a stake in that day, haven't they? They've all contributed, so that's great. Brilliant. I'm just going to go on to difficult days now, because I think this is a really important one. And I think this is great that Heather shared this. She says, anniversaries that are related to loss or traumatic events around Christmas can literally floor us. So sadly, if you have had a loss around the time of Christmas, or a birthday or whatever, around an anniversary, it can be so much more difficult. So she's sharing here, Heather's saying that in 1982, she lost her granddad on the 21st of December, and just one day after her birthday on the 20th. Then in 2017, she lost her dad on the 22nd of December, and her mum just 2 weeks later. It was also around the time of her grandma's birthday on the 27th of December. It was also a parent's wedding anniversary in December as well. And so she says for her, Christmas is emotionally laden with all these anniversaries and loss. So she likes to prepare herself and be very gentle with herself during this time. So if you know sometimes that those are difficult times for yourself, then it's good not to pack loads of precious stuff around it as well. And I think sometimes we do that to keep busy to not actually feel. But this is the lovely part about it. And, you know, we've all got different ways of honouring people that we've lost. But she says, I try to think of the good times we had and the gifts that each of my parents and grandparents gave me, myself and her two sisters. They take Christmas wreaths up to the remembrance ground and remember the good times. So although you know it's tinged with that time of loss, it is that having laughs about the funny things they said, and you know, the good fun times you had when you were all together. So she says, when I feel emotional, I don't push it down anymore, but I let it come up. And she uses her EFT tapping and havening, which really helps to sort of regulate again. But allow some time in those weeks just to be and to feel rather than do. You know, maybe it's looking at photographs, maybe it's really honouring that person, but trying to bring in, you know, the happy memories as well, isn't it? And she says that's really helped her to release the pain. So
I think if you do have those really challenging emotions, it's okay to feel them. And often the more that we lean into them and we feel them and we acknowledge them, we process them, the healthier and happier we are, rather than continually pushing them down. So that's one thing that I've learned. I remember the first Christmas after my mum had died, you know, really, really knocked it home that she was gone. I found that really, really difficult. And I pushed it down, and I pushed it down for years and years and years. So I think that would be my top tip, was it's okay to feel all the feels, good, bad and indifferent, all the feels.
And we all grieve differently, don't we? I'm a great one for feeling how lucky I am to still be here, and to try and make an event on that person's birthday, or you know, where you go somewhere that you loved going with them, and you sort of try and celebrate their life and keep those memories, those lovely memories. I know we all do it differently, but that's kind of the way I do it. And even buying flowers and putting them in front of a photograph of the person, you know, there's all kinds of things that we can do, and it's good to share maybe some tips in the Facebook group if there's things that work for you that will help others that are perhaps having a really difficult day. But we all have those difficult days, you know. We're all going to be experiencing loss throughout our lives. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be people, it can be our pets, you know, it can be any of those things. Final or penultimate one on here is be present. So Heather's saying, I try as much as possible to be present in the moment rather than worry too much about what's coming up. If something comes into my head that I choose to do in the future, I jot it down on a pad or in a notes app that I've got on my phone, so I can park it. If it's something I don't have control over, I put it on the forget it list, love that, and leave it to others to deal with. And this means that I don't get anxious or use my precious energy on worrying, and I'm able to enjoy whatever is happening right now. And it was a game changer. So I know that Wendy's going to be sharing more about that, I think, coming up in a moment. But yeah, I love that forget it list. I'm going to have a forget it list because the fact is, you've written it down, you've dealt with it, and you've put it to one side, and instead of letting it ruminate and go round and round. And we're really good at beating ourselves up, aren't we? You know, perhaps if you can't do the things you used to do right at the moment, then we'll use that as a stick to beat ourselves with. So I love the fact about being present in the moment, not worrying about the future, not comparing yourself, what you're doing now, to what you used to do, and putting things on the forget it list. and letting that go. Love that.
Just a quickie on the subject of lists. Do you know what really helped me was I had a to-done list. You know, sometimes we have a massive to-do list and then we only focus on the stuff that we haven't done. So every time I did do something, it would go on my to-done list, and that would really motivate me and show me just actually how fruitful I had been.
Yeah.
And stuff and focus on success, not on constantly being focused on all the bits I hadn't done and didn't have the energy all the time. So I heartily recommend, as well as a forget it list, a to-done list.
Oh, I love that. Love that. We all need a to-done list, don't we? And feel good. And also for some people, it's getting rid of the lists. I spoke to somebody recently and said that they said they realized that to-do lists were really detrimental to their health. They don't do them at all anymore. So you know, it's finding what works for you as an individual, isn't it? Christmas dinner. So we're going to come on to Janie in a moment. That's going to give us some really great professional stuff around how to look after ourselves nutritionally over Christmas. Heather's just sharing her note here. She's saying, if you're preparing Christmas dinner, allow yourself time to prep in advance. Don't feel guilty for cutting corners. She said, Auntie Bessie's roast potatoes and Yorkshire puddings will do. And so will gravy granules. Well, I'm a gravy granule girl anyway then, so you know, I don't care if anyone judges me for that. I'd always sit and prep the veg on Christmas Eve, she says, and get others involved while sat watching a cheesy Christmas movie. Frozen veg are just as good, so don't put yourself under pressure to be perfect. So some lovely tips there for someone who's been very, very severely ill with chronic fatigue, and you know, is just allowed herself to go from perfectionist to, do you know what, it's what works, it's all fine, and you know, this is the sort of transition we can make. So yeah, so making healthy choices while enjoying Christmas, Janie.
Yeah, obviously we can, I like Heather's point there, because we have to throw out that perfectionism hat, don't we, completely. So obviously what I'm going to be sharing with you is trying to keep it healthy, which obviously helps your recovery, but also keeping that within balance of where you are on your recovery and where your energy is as well. So, and as also, I think we've already talked about, is the delegation and the planning ahead. So really helpful tips to bring into the healthy eating as well. So how to make healthy choices and enjoy Christmas. So I'm not going to go into detail about blood sugar balancing, because that's been covered many times on other webinars. So if you're new to the Chrysalis effect and you're new to your recovery pathway, then do have a look back and get a basic understanding of blood sugar balancing. And this can really help to just keep your energy steady through the day. So kind of keeping those choices healthy and within that blood sugar balancing remit, shall we say. So have a look back at that. And often that's ensuring, the basics of that is just ensuring you're having a good level of protein through the day. And what I would say is kind of start with a good breakfast. So don't kind of chuck the breakfast one out of the window. That's probably the most important one. So if you can get a good breakfast and plenty of protein in there in the morning, that will help keep your energy up through the day. And then planning ahead. Do you need to sort of prepare or buy certain foods to share at a family gathering? So are you gluten-free or dairy-free, sugar-free, paleo, keto? So you'll know if you've been advised and you're on a particular nutritional protocol, what do you need to take to that family gathering if you're going somewhere else? Or what do you need, you know, in your own home? So ensuring that your needs are met again. So if you are on one of those protocols and it's important, that's working well for you, then do your best to keep that going. I know I found a recipe. I'll try and dig it out. It was a recipe for a chocolate log that was gluten-free, and I'm pretty sure it was sugar-free and dairy-free as well. So it was made from sort of a date and prune combo. So it was more the sort of dried fruit mix rather than being a cake mix. So there's alternative ideas out there that if you do want to have something that's really tasty and Christmas-like, you can do that in a different way. Alcohol is probably another one to talk about. So again, this will depend where you are in your recovery. I know for a period of time, I could not tolerate alcohol. If I had a few sips of alcohol, I would throw up. And that lasted probably about six to 8 months. So I just didn't drink. It just didn't serve me. I was listening to my body. My body clearly didn't want it. I would just literally throw up if I had any alcohol. So I'm pretty sure there was events. I can't remember if that was actually over Christmas, but there was definitely events where I just wouldn't drink. So I would take sparkling water, and I would have some elderflower in that, or some fresh lemon or lime, and kind of make a special drink in a nice glass. And I think there was a tip from someone else that they would put their drink into a wine glass so it looked like that they were drinking. So then they didn't kind of keep getting asked, why are you not having a glass of wine?
Yeah, Janie, it was Heather suggested that if you use apple juice and you add some soda and a slice of something, it looks like you're drinking a cocktail, or as you dilute the apple juice, it looks like you're drinking wine. And those people that are going, oh, have a drink, it's Christmas, come on, don't be boring, they leave you alone so that you haven't got to keep separate, sort of standing out from the crowd, if you like, and saying, oh no, I can't drink, I'm not well. So yeah, that worked really well for her.
Yeah, and I do that now on days when I'm choosing not to drink, so that you don't have that pressure. Almost, it's that sort of peer pressure, sometimes, isn't it? There's other drinks, sort of kefir drinks or kombucha. There's alcohol-free beers and wines or bubbles that you can get. Again, kind of shopping ahead of time that you've got those. If you know you're choosing not to drink over Christmas, then take yourself something along that you can drink and you can enjoy and feel like you're joining in a little bit. And for those of you that do feel like you can tolerate a glass of wine, then my suggestion is enjoy that, and just have a glass of water for each glass of alcohol that you have, and then that helps you to not feel worse the next day and have any of those sort of after effects of it. So and be in the moment and enjoy what you are choosing. So it's not the time for food diaries and feeling guilty about having something. There's also that balance, depending on where you are in your recovery and what your nutritional protocol is on and what you choose. It's at the end of the day, it's your choice. Maybe I'm going to have a day off of all the restrictions of Christmas Day and just let myself enjoy it and eat it, and that is your choice. So remembering, trying to do your protocols and the healthy stuff 90% of the time, you will get the results from it. But you know where you are in your recovery, so please listen and honour what your body needs right now. Supporting digestion. So often digestion can be impaired through our recovery. It's not as optimal as it used to be or as we'd like it to be. So there's some really sort of basics to help us support digestion. It's often a bigger meal, isn't it? Christmas dinner. So one of the basics can be eating some bitter foods. I'll give you a couple of ideas of those, kind of just before you're eating. So bitter foods could be things like radish or watercress. Other ideas off the top of my head, I've gone blank on that one. But radish and watercress, I'll put some other ideas into the group. Can help to stimulate your bile flow, which helps your digestive process. So adding some of those in can be really helpful. Making sure you're chewing your food well. So just take time over your dinner. So you don't have to finish it all. It's fine if you get to the point you're full. Consider a digestive enzyme or digestive support of some sort. So there's some little caracol sachets, which is basically papaya, which is really high in the digestive enzymes, natural digestive enzymes, really gentle, and it can support the breakdown of foods. Or basic other digestive enzymes you can either pick up on the natural dispensary or in a health food shop. Minimize the foods that don't serve your digestion and your energies. So I know for me, wheat was a big problem for me through recovery, and it's still something I can't tolerate a lot of. So I know through recovery, if I had wheat, it would bloat me out. It would do something to my energy in my brain. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I knew that it affected my energy. So it was just out of the equation for me. It just didn't serve me. and ideally not eating too late in the evening. So our digestion is at optimum kind of at lunchtime. So if we can have a bigger meal at lunchtime, that would help the digestive process. Obviously, that depends on your dream of Christmas, as Alison was talking about. How do you want your Christmas day to look? Sometimes if we've had that after effects, so maybe a day or two later, and maybe we have had some things that didn't work so well for us, or we've had a little bit bigger meals or some cream and dairy that's quite hard for us to digest. Perhaps in the next couple of days, we just want to take it a little bit easier with our foods. We may just have some broth or some nice soup and just eat really lightly for a couple of days to allow things just to come back up to where we were. There's a product called Alcala that I really like, that if you ever feel sort of nausea or sick, it can be really helpful just to settle the tummy and kind of almost reset things, alkalize the system a little bit. If you feel like you've really overindulged, and perhaps consider that sort of intermittent fasting, that you may just extend that time that you're fasting. So you might finish earlier. This isn't on Christmas Day, this might be a few days later, that you go, actually, I'm not going to have dinner, I'll just have a really light soup and eat that really early, 5 or 6, and then you don't eat until a later breakfast. And you've extended that fasting period to allow the body bit of tidy up time and time to recover.
And I think you just mentioned that couple of days later. I noticed with me when I couldn't, like you, I couldn't drink for quite a long period, but then as I moved through the phases of recovery, I could tolerate some alcohol, and I thought, oh, that's great, I didn't feel awful and I didn't get a headache. However, what I really noticed was, if I drank on a Saturday, on Tuesday, my mood would plummet. And I started to plot it. So again, it's a choice, isn't it? I do like a glass of something nice if I'm out for a celebration, but I am aware that instead of me worrying why I feel horrible on a Tuesday or whatever, I go, this is my system needs a bit of additional help. So milk thistle for the liver, those kinds of things, because that heightened sensitivity, and because the way our systems work, our body deals with it at the time, but sometimes we get a backlash.
Yeah, a delayed response sometimes.
Yes.
Is completely
definitely.
Yeah.
So I think we learn, don't we, what keeps us at optimum, but we've got to live our lives, and I love that, that 80-90% of the time when we're doing all those right things. But I was in Ireland once, and the Irish are really got these lovely sayings, and I was talking to a chap there, and he said, everything in moderation, even moderation in moderation. That's always stuck with me, so that you can let your hair down, but just know, have your little first aid kit up your sleeve, and also don't plummet and worry yourself because you don't feel great if you have overindulged a little bit. Just know that it'll pass, and look after yourself. I think there's some great tips there.
I remember one time visiting the family, my house family in Derby, and we went to my brother-in-law's house, and it was kind of around lunchtime, but we weren't offered any food. We were sort of popping in for a cup of tea. So I was kind of like, I need to eat regularly. I'm quite a pitter type, so I was not fading slightly. And I remember I had these coconut snacks that worked for me. I was on quite protocol, I think, at the time. So I had these coconut snacks. So yeah, if you're traveling, think about what snacks you may need to have with you. Because sometimes we do pop in and visit family, and sometimes you don't get fed, which can be unusual. I don't think it was actually Christmas Day. It was probably around that Christmas time, but having those snacks kind of just, all right, I can have a snack, thankfully, and that kept me going. So plan ahead.
That's a great idea. So Wendy, I know you've got some great festive hacks here to share.
Yeah, so going back to some of the things that we've already been talking about, but just wanted to share a little bit from my experience. So replacing people pleasing with being realistic about what you can manage. And I used to spend a lot of time trying to join in on the same level as everybody else, and I was hugely resistant to being seen as any kind of party pooper, basically, and had a lot of anxiety in my head about speaking up and asking to not join in with things. So what would happen is I'd go through the day and do the best I could, but then the next day I'd be completely wiped out and not be able to spend precious time with my children. And it was a big part of recovery for me to really just sort of see the impact that it was having on me, trying to avoid the discomfort of having those conversations, because, you know, I was just taking the discomfort onto myself, basically. So I'd really encourage you to sort of, you know, have a think about where you might be doing that. And that leads me on to sort of point 2, to have a clear plan. So have a think about, as others have mentioned, you know, who might be the difficult people you might need to have a plan for. Think about who you might want to sit with in big family groups. Have a think about where you might ask to go if you need rest time, and actually plan that in. I remember when we used to play charades, because my in-laws are really keen on charades, and I used to find that exhausting, that I would just sit on the guessing team and not actually do the charades, because it used to use up a lot of cognitive energy for me. And we have to think about all these different kinds of energy. And Sally Ann was talking about this the other day with the pacing. That we have our mental and emotional energy being around certain family members. We have our cognitive energy. If we're playing games, we might need to be using that. Then we've got our physical energy with the actual shopping. And it's sort of having a clear plan of where those things are that are going to be an issue for you, and asking people, you know, is there a room I could have a lie down in later? So that I can cope with getting through the day. And someone that's understanding of that would hopefully say, yeah, you can pop up to the bedroom and have a break at any time if you need to. And I think that having that plan in place, that if you're going to go on a long walk because it's a family tradition, how much of that are you going to be able to do, or are you going to decide not to do it? And just be clear about that before you start the day, because it takes the anxiety out of feeling completely out of control and getting swept along with going along with things to make other people feel happy and see you joining in. But you need to really be clear about what you can manage, and feeling in control of that will help to relieve any anxiety. And practice self-compassion, because there are going to be things that you might not be able to manage this year, and that's completely fine. And I used to worry a lot about what my children would think of me if I didn't do lots of things with them. And the truth is, kids don't love you any less because you don't do all the things that are in your head that you feel you should be doing. They just want to be with you. And it might be that you can do something quietly at the table and play a quiet game, rather than be standing up and playing Twister and things like this. Or maybe you can just watch a movie and they'll just remember that lovely feeling of being with you. And I think also that a lot of the time, we have such a big mental load around Christmas. We might feel like we're not joining in with everything, but we've probably had a huge contribution already before Christmas comes in making Christmas happen, with all the planning and organising. So one of my top tips really is about remembering to do your best and forget the rest. And we were just talking about this, having a forget list. And I think it's really important, you know, there might be things that you'd like to do, but just letting that go, and just knowing that you've done your best, and it's about being together. And it is just one small part of the year. So, you know, if it doesn't go exactly to plan and you don't get to see everybody, or you don't get to do everything with everyone, you've got the rest of the year to see people. And keeping that in perspective, I think, is really important to cut down on all that pressure that we put on ourselves. And just coming on to a word about traveling. So my family don't live close, so we'd always have a choice between hosting or traveling. And I think there's pros and cons, so it's important to weigh that up. If you do travel to other people's houses, you can leave when you want to, which is sometimes harder with hosting. If you have to do a journey, it's worth thinking about whether you can split that journey up. Do you need to maybe do a pit stop somewhere, or even have a night away halfway there to break it up? And maybe you need to accept that as part of the journey and of the traveling. Could you ask to have a rest when you arrive at the host house? Or could you, maybe the traveling isn't realistic this year and you might need to look at doing a Zoom call instead, or having a telephone call with that person and try and get together in another way, because it can be really exhausting. So again, being realistic and making a plan of how you can manage it, and asking for help, for what you need is really important, I think, for traveling. So the imagined expectation of what the family are expecting from you sometimes is bigger than the actual situation. And this is the issue that I had a lot, is I'd be so worried what people would say. And sometimes when you actually do be brave and say, I need to do this. And as you said earlier, somebody said, you know, the wording, I've decided that I can manage this, or I've decided I'm only going to do that. And, you know, being brave enough to say that is sometimes it's a strange situation, because you realize that it wasn't a big deal for anybody else. It was just for you, because you had a fear that it was going to be received badly. And doing it sooner rather than later definitely eliminates all of that build up and anxiety, I think, because usually it's, as you were saying, Jenny, about asking to do the presents after an hour, and that was honoured. And most times that is the case. So it's a lot of imagined issues in our head about what people, they're going to be disappointed, they're going to be let down, they're going to feel annoyed with us, and usually that's not the case. So
you know, it's so funny you saying that. I love that, imagined expectations. What came to mind for me was many years earlier, when my kids were small and they were at school, there was all these after school activities, and honestly it's the mums at the school gate saying, oh, is so and so, you know, is Christian doing karate, is Christian doing football, is Kelly doing this, is Kelly doing that? So I got swept up in feeling I was a bad mum if I didn't book my kids into all these things, right? And I got myself, because I'm a sensitive and I was working, and you know, it's a lot. I remember this particular week where I felt like all I did was run the kids here, there and everywhere, and it meant dinner was difficult and times, and I had this sort of meltdown, and I made a decision, and I said to them, look, you know, all these activities are just too much, and we're not eating our meals on time and all things like that. So I think we need to really look at the ones you really want to do. And do you know what they said? Oh, we don't want to do any of them. We just want to come home and watch telly. And I just thought, oh my God, it was an imagined expectation. I'd allowed what I thought I had to do to be a good mum to cloud my actual understanding of my own kids. And actually they'd been at school all day, they wanted to come home, they just wanted to cozy in, and everything changed on that, but it was all in my head.
That's it. And it's the same with traditions, isn't it? We think that everybody wants to do it, but maybe everybody's thinking the same thing. Why are we still doing this thing that nobody really wants to do every year? And sometimes if you're brave enough to say, do you know what, I'm going to sit this one out so I've got enough energy to do the other thing later. Other people sometimes say, yeah, do you know what, I'm really tired, actually, I'm just going to have a rest. Can we just put the TV on and have some quiet time? And then you realize everyone was thinking the same, you know. Absolutely. But no one wanted to ruin the atmosphere.
Yeah, I think be brave and speak out. And I remember the year that I was dreading telling my family, because it was the whole, you know, we always had to go to my mum's and all had to be together, and I found that environment too noisy. I found it really stressful. I didn't really enjoy it, but it was like I couldn't be the one to say no. And and I made a decision. We were going away for Christmas, and I told my mum, braved it and told her in July, and she was a bit sort of quiet about it, but actually she bought me, she said, well, I'll get you your presents early so that I can get you some things to take away. And it was just as easy as that, actually, you know. And she got us some lovely things to actually have earlier before Christmas, and we went away, and you know, it was absolutely the best thing we ever did. It was brilliant. I think do things that lift your heart. Don't force yourself to go into situations where you already you can feel the energy draining out of you. Heather's given us a little bit of insight on how you deal with invitations.
Yeah, do you know what really resonated for me was when you're saying, actually, can we not do X or Y? And then other people go, oh, thank goodness, I've never liked that anyway. But no one has actually had a burning need to say it or whatever. And you can just completely change your whole Christmas. Yeah. I remember one year we said, can we not have Christmas food? Can we just all have our favourite meal for Christmas? And they went, that's amazing. And my son had macaroni cheese for Christmas lunch. And you know what? It was easy for everyone, and everyone got what they truly wanted, not what they thought they should be doing.
That's great, isn't it? Remember that the Christmas police don't come. They don't come and knock on your door and say, excuse me, you're supposed to be doing this today.
Exactly. I love what Wendy said about if if there's something you want to share and you've decided, share that early, because sometimes you get yourself in that pickle of, I want to say this. Say, say it the week before or whatever, get it kind of out the way. So that's not playing into your Christmas day and, when do I say I'm not going to go for the walk, or when do I say I don't want to do this, or I do want to do that. Get it in early, and then that helps to minimize the anxiety around having that conversation as well. I think that's really important. And probably one I know I've sort of been in those situations. I wish I'd said it yesterday, and then I wouldn't have to be here today.
And just remember that when you are going through recovery, your ability to filter out noise and light and environments is reduced. That is an actual biochemical part of what we go through in that recovery process. That doesn't mean that's going to be like that forever, but right now your system is going to be taxed, more overtaxed. It's going to be overwhelmed, and it's going to feel more stressful. So that's why this sort of planning, knowing what you need, what works for you, having a safe, sort of quiet space to go away to, having those conversations early, those kinds of things are going to be really helpful to you. So let's just bring together these final tips from Heather. And this is a really valuable one, because I know that some of you will be thinking, oh, but I'm going to be asked to do this, that and the other. So the first thing that Heather shared on this part is invitations. How do you handle them? So she says, if you're invited to an occasion, before responding, always allow yourself time to think about it. Thank someone for inviting you and say, I'll let you know if I will be coming as soon as possible. Okay, so don't be put on the spot. Don't allow yourself to be put on the spot. It's part of the Step Out program that we do. If you struggle with these kinds of things, then we give you the magic words. Heather goes on to say, check in with yourself. Consider if it will drain you or replenish you. If it will drain you more than it will bring you joy, then the answer is no. So honor your needs, thank them again for the invitation, but you won't be able to come on this occasion. If they continue to probe and they know about your chronic fatigue, just say, which we covered a moment ago, as you know, I'm following a recovery pathway, and although I'm making progress, I know at this time, home is best for me, at least for now, but thank you so much for inviting me. So there you are. That's really even the words to say, I'm making great progress, but for this year, home is definitely the best place for me, at least for now. Thank you so much for inviting me, and I hope you have a lovely time. Yeah, so it's a nice way of doing it. Also, she's saying about Christmas admin. She says, don't worry about sending Christmas cards or even presents if you're really not up to it. So you don't need to send that out to everyone if it is too much. Instead, she says what she did was she sent out a text that she copied and pasted onto social media and WhatsApp groups to say that she was donating to charity instead, as well as saving the trees. Nobody complained. Much to her surprise, it took the stress out of having to write all the cards and also eased the financial pressure that she was under. So that's another consideration, isn't it? Maybe you've not been working. Maybe you've not got the funds that you would normally have, and maybe that's being a worry for you. Well, you know what? It's only an imagined expectation. So I think that's a lovely way of doing it. That this year I'm going to be making a donation to Chrysalis or whatever is important to you, instead of sharing cards, but I'm wishing everyone a happy Christmas. You can do that now at the touch of a button. It takes seconds, doesn't it? Brilliant. Then last couple of things from Heather. She says, connect with loved ones. Missing loved ones who live a long way away is a challenge for her, because her daughter lives in Australia. Well, we know that she's out there at the moment. And her stepdaughters live a long drive away in the UK, and one is in Singapore. So connecting via Messenger is a godsend. And she says that they connect on a call for Christmas Day. Although it's not ideal, it really helps to see them virtually rather than not at all. You know, sometimes you can see people like children, grandchildren, maybe open their presents like we all had to for the pandemic. You know, we got used to those things, didn't we? So if you're unable to connect in person, maybe this will be of comfort to you. Oh, it's lovely. Thank you, Heather. I know you'll probably watch this a little bit later on. And then she was talking about Secret Santa. So one of the tips is that all her close family, there's about 20 adults, they decided to do a Secret Santa where we each drew out a name and bought for that person a present to the value of. So she says they chose £10, but everybody can choose their own. And it meant that we had something to open from everyone, but it didn't break the bank. So she says that in their family, they've decided only to buy for children until they're 18, and we don't feel guilty for stopping buying for them. So there's some really good things if financial worries or the pressure of presents are starting to worry you. So thank you so much, Heather, for those tips. Just before we let you go to enjoy your lovely festive time, this is just our final festive tip. And it says, don't forget self-care this Christmas. Let go of expectations. Spend time, not money. Remember your reason for the season. And find support if you need it. So I really hope that all those amazing festive tips are going to be able to support you and make your festive season a lot easier, and lots of little hacks for you to be able to call upon when you need them. So it just remains for us to wish you a peaceful, joyful festive season and a healthful new year. So I know that Heather would love to pass on her wishes for festive season. So Wendy, thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I just want to wish everybody a wonderful Christmas, and I hope that everybody can enjoy the festive season.
Thanks, Wendy. And Alison, thank you so much for being on today, helping us to create our dream Christmas.
Thank you for asking me, and Merry Christmas, everybody. And I wish you the Christmas that you dream of.
Thanks, Alison. And Janie, helping us with our food and helping us to indulge if we want to and give us all the hacks. Thank you so much, Janie.
My pleasure. So Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Have a happy and healthy one, and enjoy that rest time afterwards and recovery.
Thanks, Janie. And Beverly.
Happy Christmas to everybody. I would wish you an amazing Christmas season to be full of rest, recovery, but also fun and laughter. And into Happy New Year, because that's what will be coming next. Take good care, everyone.
And so it just reminds me to say thank you so much for joining us for Festive Recovery Hacks. And I know that all of that valuable information from all our lovely recovered people hopefully will help you to have the joyful festive time that you deserve. So thanks so much for joining us.